Nestled in the rolling hills amidst waves of heat and humidity, a twisted and diabolical challenge awaits. Hi, and welcome to the second round of the Missed Apex iRacing Championship as we hop the pond for our first ever race on the intimidating Charlotte Roval. From the high-speed banking to the torturous twisties of the infield, drivers will have to bust out their inner NASCAR as they duke it out on a track where roughing is absolutely considered racing. To get us underway today, please give a warm welcome to your commentator, Chris Stevens.
Round 2 of the Missed Apex iRacing Championship. Season 8 comes from the Charlotte International Speedway, the Roval specifically, so we've got some chicanes and an infield section on this legendary tri-oval to negotiate with the Formula 4 machinery, the Formula 3 machinery, and to round out the night, the Super Formula cars. We're into the last 20 minutes of practice. Let's head trackside and see what's happening in the free practice session. Currently it is our man second in the championship, Brad Philpott, who is leading the way on a 1:15.6 and is just over a tenth and a half ahead of Danny Henney, who really does need to get his championship challenge back out on track. Championship leader Gregoire Gomez in the top 3 as well. My name is Chris Stevens, but alongside me tonight, it is Mr. Stuffy himself. Stuffy, welcome to the commentary box.
Thank you for having me, Chris. This is not my usual position. I'm normally out there on track, but to be honest, I don't have good form in the Missed Apex races. So yeah, I thought I'd come up here and join you in a nice warm commentary box.
Yeah, definitely a lot less stress up here than probably on the track, especially considering that this season we've got 3 different machines in 3 different races for the guys to use, so they are going to be having to adjust things very, very quickly. But you know, you joined us for the F3 seasons that we've run over the past couple of years. So how do you think that's going to handle on this infield oval track?
It's going to be difficult because while this, of course, does have the infield section, it is an oval circuit, very similar to Daytona. So there's walls on the infield. You need to be very careful, particularly into that T1 sector. And as anyone knows, open wheel cars don't like curbs. And those 2 chicanes that we have, the 2 bus stops in the middle of the circuit and right at the ends as you cross the finish, just before you cross the finish line, can get rather tasty and provide some drama.
They certainly can. Now, if you've been watching Missed Apex iRacing for a long, long time, you might remember that I think it was the first season of our Formula Renault Championship. It's the only other time we've used this Charlotte Roval circuit, and we had quite a big scrap between Danny Henney and Brad Philpott on that particular occasion as well. And judging by what we've seen in the week's practice and the build-up to this, could be much of the same. And it seems like these races are going to play out a bit like the races at Spa, as we see Danny Henney just getting a little close and touching that safer barrier on the exit of the bus stop chicane in the middle of the oval. That's a mistake we've seen quite a few drivers make. But just to finish up the point I was talking about, the races could well play out like at Spa, where we see an awful lot of slipstreaming and drivers not necessarily making the move straight away lest they show their hand too soon.
Yes, most definitely. As we just saw Danny Henney there hit the wall on the exit of the curb, that getting on throttle as early as possible is so key here. The F4 in particular doesn't have as much torque as the F3 and the Super Formula car that we'll see later on this evening. So you want to try and maximise your exit as much as possible. But with that comes a lot of risk, of course, trying to take it as close to the barriers. We'll see a lot of slipstream and a lot of defence, I think. Qualifying is going to be very important here. If you are out in front and you can control that lower line, as we're seeing Danny take now, just above the apron, you have to force the driver to go on your outside and cover more track. So you are in control. So yeah, qualifying is going to be important here, particularly in F4. And then, oh, there we just see, obviously, an example there is someone taking the curb a little bit too much, and that can then cause some issues for those running close behind.
Yeah, that looked like it was Matt Trumpets who ended up in the wall there in his gold number 34. 4 machine. I want to say yes, because the gold drivers there, as we see a replay of it. We'll explain a little bit more about the format and about the cars in just a little bit. But first of all, if you weren't with us a few weeks ago for the first round at the Hungaroring, it was the dawn of a new era for the Missed Apex iRacing series. The first time we adopted the 3 machines in 3 races format that we are going to be using throughout this entire season. So here's a handy little guide to what happened last time out.
Missed Apex iRacing kicked off at the Hungaroring with a brand new format featuring 3 different cars across 3 races. First off, it was the FIA F4 cars, and the start was anything but great for our reigning champion, Gregoire Gomez.
A shocker of a start for Gregoire Gomez as he's being swarmed by Luke Power and by Sam Harper, who's had the best start of the lot.
Gomez didn't give up though, and before long he'd taken back the place.
Sam Harper's having to go defensive. Gomez has got the inside line, and Gomez has been able to retake that second place.
And immediately Harper had to fend off a couple more velocity vultures in Luke Power and Bradley Philpott.
Harper comes back up the inside into turn 2. Great battle happening here.
All 3 were doggedly determined until disaster struck.
Now coming into the chicane. This is going to be very tight. We've had contact, and Power's gone straight into the back of Harper's car.
At the front, Gomez had had enough of playing second fiddle and took the fight to Henny.
Henny is feeling the pressure, hugging the pit wall right to the inside, and he's going to force Gomez to go the long way round. Gomez will have the advantage going into the left-hander of turn 2.
Gomez took the lead and went on to take victory in the first race of the new season.
And Gregoire Gomez takes victory in the Formula 4 race at the Hungaroring.
Race 2, featuring the Dallara F3, got off to a clean start with Steve Rubens, Nick Alexander and Joe Borgeson leading the way.
Rubens, very nice start off the line, holds on to the lead, but Nick Alexander's got some good momentum. He will have the inside line for the first corner. Terry Tylers goes around the outside into second place. Beautiful move.
But it didn't take long for the Demons of Destruction to rain havoc on the field.
Whoa! Big incident in the middle of the pack. Absolute carnage and chaos has reigned on the run-up to turn 4.
After the carnage had settled, Tero Tylers grabbed the lead from Steve Rubens, who was then monstered by Sam Harper.
Tero Tylers leads across the line for the first time. Steve Rubens now coming under pressure from Sam Harper. Between them and on the exit of the corner, Sam Harper makes his way through.
Harper then went after Tylers, and it didn't take long to get him.
And he's already pulling clear. Look at that. Jink out, 8th outbreak, and into the lead.
Harper kept the lead, extended the gap, and went on to take a well-deserved victory.
Meanwhile, here is Sam Harper, shimmying the car across the line. Sam Harper wins.
Race 3 saw the drivers swap to the Super Formula cars. The field got away cleanly, but only just.
That looked like Lucas Raskowitz, who almost ended up in the barrier, avoiding the slow-moving car. Oh, big lock-up from Smithy. He's run straight off the track.
Then Danny Henny had his rear wing demolished by Andrew Sexton. The wing magically reappeared, but it couldn't save him from disaster.
That was Danny Henny going for a spin. Henny trying to get up into 5th place, I think that was.
Just behind the leaders, Brad Philpott and John Cox were hard at it.
Oh, Philpott getting right under the rear wing of Cox's car on the way into turn 5. And let's see if he can do anything with it. Philpott gets a brilliant run.
And Philpott just kept on pushing.
Philpott has closed up on Stephen Williams for 2nd place. He's right on the gearbox now of that West McLaren coloured car. And Philpott, he's got a monster run here already out of turn 3. How did he do that?
In the end, Philpott ran out of laps, and Smithy held on to take his first win of the new season.
Here is Alex Smithy Smith, who has repelled the advances of Bradley Philpott throughout the race and takes victory in the Super Formula race at the Hungaroring. Philpott has to settle for 2nd. The gap at the end, 1.2 seconds. I'm sure Philpott gave it absolutely everything, but brilliant drive from Smithy nonetheless. Well, that is what happened in a very action-packed season opener. The way that has left the standings is that in the silver classification, we have Miguel Morland leading the standings there, ahead of Steve Rubens and Alexandros Muravkani. in the gold standings. Alex Smithy, after that overall victory that we saw there, leads the way, but only by 2 points to Sam Harper, another overall victor last time out, with Andrew Sexton in third position. In terms of the overall championship, well, the platinum class we'll take a look at first. It is Gregoire Gomez leading Luke Power, and James Gill, having only just been promoted from the silver class championship as the reigning champion there, third place in there. But as you can see, Danny Henney and Kyle Power are regular top contenders from the last few seasons, down in 7th and 10th respectively. And if we look at the overall standings, well, I'm afraid it only gets worse for them, actually, because splitting Gomez and Power is Mr. Bradley Philpott, who is only 10 points away from Greg Gomez. There is the overall standings, and you see the gold leaders, Alex Smith and Sam Harper, right up there inside the top 10. So Danny Henney 10th in the overall championship before this one gets underway. Kyle Power all the way down in 20th place. And these are two of our most recent champions that we're talking about, but it is the reigning champion, Gregoire Gomez, leading the way so far. Just under 10 minutes left in this practice session. From then on, we will go into a 10-minute open qualifying session in these F4 cars. So it's not like in the iRacing officials where you get 2 laps by yourself. It is a open session. Then we go into our 3 22-minute races. First of all, with the F4 car, then we do a top 20 reverse grid race in the F3 car, and then another top 20 reverse grid race in the Super Formula car. Now, Stuffy, you've driven this track a fair bit, I would say. Is that right?
It's not on the top of my most run track, but yeah, I have dabbled around this track. Yes.
Okay. Well, either way, you are more qualified to talk about how to go fast here than I am. So, have you got any speed secrets that maybe the audience needs to know?
The main thing to focus about is to keep an eye out on those cars, as we mentioned earlier on, being aggressive over those chicanes, the curbs in particular. It's a very risk or reward situation. You either attack those curbs and gain the time, but risk losing control of the car and potentially going round into a spin and collecting the cars behind you, or even worse, into the barrier. And the infield section, you need to use all of the track as possible. So you'll see guys running very wide on the infield, almost touching the grass. It looks like they're going off track, but they're actually not. So they're trying to open up the exit of the corner, and then they'll get really tight as possible as they can to cover as little track as they exit onto the oval. And then, as we have mentioned previously, because this is half an oval circuit, very similar to Daytona, you will see guys defending to the inside, just running above the apron and trying to maximize as little amount of track as possible and defend from those who are trying to slipstream past. So yes, an exciting evening, a track that I think not many people here would have spent too much time on their weekly official races. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the 3 very different Formula cars that we're going to have round here, because it's going to be 3 very different total experiences.
Well, don't take Stuffy's word for it, because earlier in the week we sent spanners out onto this 17-turn 3.6 kilometer circuit to inform us and all the drivers taking part in this race what we need to churn out a good lap time.
Hey everyone, Spanners here. This week the Missed Apex Cup takes a diversion from Formula 1 tracks to try something a little bit new and a little bit spicy. This is a favourite on the iRacing service. It's the Charlotte Roval, which is a mixture between an oval track and an infield track as well. This will be a bit new to some of our single-seater racers, but let's take a tour of this circuit. Okay, so turn 1, the camber encourages you to dive into the apex, and it's uphill on the exit, which means that you do need to be a bit brave on that wall. Just a little kink through turn 2. I don't think you'll have to lift in the F4 for this one, but maybe the Super Formula. Dive on the brakes, early apex now, and then you're dancing with the track limits. In quali, that'll be a little bit more of an issue. Okay, so you set yourself up for turn 6 through turn 5. This is very dive bombable, especially if you're getting a good run here. And and then you have to set yourself up for what is going to be the most important part of the track, which is turn 8. I don't think you can actually cut as deep as that video shows, and thanks to Williams Esports, you can now no longer go below the apron without a penalty. There'll be lots of slipstreaming here and lots of opportunities to dive into the chicane. This is the easiest of the 2 chicanes coming up right now, so as long as you hug tight into the first corner, you're going to be flat out through the second, especially in the F4. And then here, we're calling this turn 13, and a lot of slipstreaming again before we go into probably one of the most awkward chicanes for racing on the service. So as you dive in on the ideal line, you avoid the car that's hurtling up the inside of you, and then as you go over the curbs and the sausage curbs, you then assess your damage and set off for another lap of the Charlotte Roval.
Thank you, Spanners. I wasn't going to mention the Williams Esports tomfoolery, but he's done it for me. So we don't need to worry about that too much. Danny Henny, while we were watching that, just gone fastest in this session by a monster 0.08 of a second, 1:15.637. But I will say he had a rather good toe behind Luke Power towards the end of that lap. And well, Stuffy, we were talking about it being an open qualifying session. The toe is absolutely something that people might try and steal during qualifying.
Most definitely. If you want to be at the top of the leaderboard and anywhere near the front of the grid, you're going to have to either work with someone, maybe there's some agreements been made prior to this, it wouldn't surprise me, or just have the luck of the draw and, yes, get a nice toe from someone helping you up ahead. But on the alternative, on the flip side, could get a lot of incidents and we could see some unfamiliar faces at the front of this grid today. Because I think, yeah, with those chicanes, I know I keep mentioning them, but they're such a big feature of this circuit. Someone or a couple of people are just going to bite off a bit more than they can chew, and that's definitely going to affect those following up close behind. So yeah, I'm not going to lie to you guys, the open qualifying has always been a nail in my coffin for me. I've never particularly been fond of it. I've always been out of position, and yeah, it's definitely a big factor here, especially as we said, where being out up front on a circuit, which especially in these F4 cars, it's quite difficult to slipstream past and overtake.
Oh, with the momentum being so important in these cars that you mentioned earlier, Stuffy, it feels like that even if you're just a few tenths, maybe even a second behind car in front, going around this oval section, you might start to feel the pull. As we see Sam Harper here pulling into pit lane, second in the Gold Championship. If you want to keep atop of the various class battles that we have, then the timing tower on the left-hand side does show the gold background being the gold drivers, and then the silver background for the silver class drivers. They all get their own little sub-championship as well. For Philpott and Jeansy, they're the blue background. That is the guest entries, but they do still get a position in the overall championship. And also you can tell by the numbers as well. So numbers 1 through 20 is for the platinum drivers, 21 up to 99 is for the gold, and then any the 3-digit number that's in the 100s, that is silver class drivers, except for the guest drivers, which have a 200 number. Or just look at the colours. That will be a lot easier for you, I think. Kyle Power here coming towards the infield section, and yes, that blue line there denoting track limits, but doesn't actually incur track limits in iRacing, so we can pretty much ignore that one. And then this is the corner that Spanish was talking about, that is so important, getting the exit and the momentum out of there as we ride on board with our Formula 3 champion from 2 seasons ago, and fought for the Formula Renault 3.5 title as well, that we used during our last season, but just missed out to Gregoire Gomez there. And as we alluded to earlier, had a pretty torrid season opener, sitting 20th in the championship going into this round. Over the last couple of seasons, we talked about Danny Henny having a a difficult start to the campaign, but we haven't really seen one for Kyle for a while. He's normally the one who takes advantage of that poor start as he comes into the pits. And we've got just 30 seconds left on the clock before we go into qualifying.
Yep, thoroughly looking forward to this. We're seeing the usual names up top, but yes, we'll see where they come out in this open qualifying. I think there's really going to be someone who's going to provide a shock here and be in the top 3 or in the top 5, but maybe don't quite expect. And one of those that we currently see in the top 5, or those who are currently leading in Hungaroring, because of the nature of this track, I think they just might fall out of position. But of course, all be made up in the race. So yeah, not long to go. Here we go.
Advancing into qualifying now, just a reminder that in the first round in Budapest, it was Danny Henny who claimed pole position on that occasion. And it is Tim Ellis leading the field out of pit lane, followed closely by the black and green coloured Bradley Philpott, using the stake F1 livery that does match his usual F3 livery as well. And then it looks like Jeansy is the third car in the queue, closely followed by Danny Henny. And just a reminder, it was Henny fastest right at the end of that session, but Philpott leading the way through most of it. And now here we're already starting to see the shenanigans when it comes to wanting track position, because it looks like Philpott wants to be in clean air.
Yeah, intriguing that one. Of course, he's going to be totally confident in his ability to get out there on pole. We'll see if he's able to do it in clean air without the assistance of a tow. I think Tim will be very happy just to sit in Bradley's draft here and get the benefit. Of course, Tim, no slouch by any means, but let's keep an eye on Bradley as he heads into the last corner, which is the chicane. You'll see him here take the sausage curbs very aggressively there. Let's stay on board with him and follow him for his first flying lap. So on throttle early, trying to get it as wide out as possible to those walls. Not as wide as I thought he would do. Maybe being a bit cautious on this first lap to get a banker in. And then you'll see here as he heads into the infield, making the use of all of that runoff, as Chris mentioned. No off track here, so really close to the grass. And then we go up and over the undulations here. Very easy. The off-cambered corner to lose the rear of the car, and then this all-important exit onto the oval, getting it as close as possible. You sometimes think you're going to hit that wall, maybe some people will, and then it's full throttle, keeping it as close to that blue and white line of the apron as possible to cover as little track. And then it's all about the all-important bus stop chicane here. How aggressive is Brad going to be? Very, very, very aggressive there, and that was a very good first attempt. Let's see where Brad is going to end up. Of course, he's going to end up on the provisional pole at the moment, the first man out there to set a lap. But ultimately, he's got ahead of the traffic. So, yes, getting that banker lap in clean air, maybe not the worst of ideas from Brad. A great last chicane there, very close to the wall, so easy to lose it. And he goes at the top of the timing sheets with a 1:15.8. Let's see where that brings them out. And Danny very, very close there. You can see 0.06 of a second separating just him and Brad, as we predicted before the start. But let's see if anyone else can improve as this qualifying session has just got underway.
Yeah, amazing. And watching the sector times there was about a tenth or so between them in the first sector, 0.2 in Henny's advantage in the middle sector, and then 0.2 in Philpott's favour in the third sector. And it's worth remembering that Danny Henny is sat in the slipstream of Tim Ellis at the moment. This is a look at our championship leader, Gregoire Gomez, who's got himself behind our gold class leader, Alex Smith, who has been going very, very strong in recent seasons. Seems to be more favouring the higher power cars, but Gomez has backed out of this lap. Probably doesn't like how close he is to Smithy. And just keeping an eye on Danny Henny as well, because he is tucked right up behind Tim Ellis as well. Here we can see it now. And he's going to have to go for a move into the chicane. That's going to kind of ruin both of their laps, but Henny will be in a better position now. Well, I say it ruined the lap. He was only 0.06 of a second slower than the lap he did before, but of course he was hoovering up the toe last time around. And actually, neither of those last 2 laps counted there for either Philpott or Henny. Gomez currently 3rd fastest, just a 1/10 of a second behind Danny Henny. And Luke Power currently in 4th position with Stephen Williams in 5th. So it's all pretty close up there at the moment. Only 0.2 of a second covers the top 4. As we see Henny building up to another lap back onto the banking. It's so close at riding the line there, the blue line on the low side. No Williams Esports shenanigans for these drivers because iRacing has dealt with that themselves now. We don't even have to police it. And it always looks like they're about to touch the wall there, the safer barrier on the left-hand side on the exit of that bus stop chicane. But most of the time they just about get away with it. Although others haven't been so lucky in practice. Sorry, go on, Stuffy.
No, I was just saying, Danny just got a bit loose there in the bus stop. You really want to see these top guys. They really want to be taking the sausage curbs kind of aggressively as possible. You want the left wheel, well, one half of the car to be over those sausage curbs. And Danny missed the entry and then subsequently affected his exit. So yeah, nearly could have been the end of Danny's qualifying there. But as you can see, Greg has just gone to the top of the timing sheets. I was about to say that Brad did get ahead and increase his provisional pole on Danny by a 10th, but now is down in 3rd position as Greg has gone up into P1. We saw him check back up because he was too close to Smithy, and it's clearly worked for him because he has just jumped to the top of the timing sheets, and James Gill has split Brad and Greg as well. So we currently have Brad in 3rd and Danny in 4th, and as I said, I did suspect, well, while they are familiar names and they're quick and at the top of the leaderboards at the moment after the first round, a little bit of a surprise with only just under 4 minutes remaining of this qualifying.
Goes so quickly, doesn't it? James Gill and the asymmetrical black and white car, his first season racing in the platinum class, the reigning silver champion, getting to skip the gold category. Such was his performance of last season, and having to avoid a couple of cars there at the bus stop chicane. That probably hasn't helped him on this lap too much. Philpott has put himself back up on the front row of the grid and to within 0.07 of a second of Gregoire Gomez's time. But Gomez has just lowered the benchmark even further, but only by 0.03 of a second. A 15.597 is the benchmark now.
Yeah, this is so close. And to be fair to everyone, credit to everyone, I haven't really seen any incidents whatsoever. Everyone's kept it pretty clean. I'm sure that won't be the case when they're all going side by side through those chicanes. But I thought qualifying would be a bit more hampered by some of those taking it a bit too aggressively over those chicanes, but really close here. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be able to improve unless they're able to get a nice slipstream from the car ahead. Seems to have all panned out very well thus far for Greg and Brad. We'll see if anyone is able to. Let's keep an eye out on Greg here. Oh, as he loses it, and I guess my wish has been answered, or prediction at least, with Greg just taking that curb too. Oh, he actually lost it on entry and just was going in too fast, and you can see the rear coming round there. And unfortunately, with little time remaining, I'm not sure if Greg is going to have the opportunity to improve. So the ball is in Brad, James and Danny's court, or maybe an outsider for that pole position in our first race of this evening.
And while we were watching that, I was watching Philpott toying with Danny Henny because he let Danny past him going into the final chicane. I think wanting to get a bit of a tow for these last couple of laps as Philpott makes it onto the grass in the infield section. So this lap is going to count for naught. He was trying to get a tow off of Danny at the start of the lap, but Danny immediately let him back through, sacrificing this lap as well. So they're both going to have to push on what will be their final flying lap of qualifying by the time they get to the timing line. So both Philpott and Gomez in a little bit of strife towards the end of this qualifying session, trying to find more speed. I say Philpott in his alter ego of Phil Bradpott has become quite well acquainted with this Mygol F4 chassis, having done an awful lot of it in the Rookie Reset series that he streams. Tim Ellis might be in a good position here to get a cheeky toe off of Philpott in the last lap here in that blue and yellow machine, but less than a minute left on the clock. These will be the final times of qualifying, and Philpott is on his way looking to reduce that 73,000th of a second gap, and Philpott's gone straight on. He's out of qualifying here. He's done and parked the car. So he will start no higher than second. Ellis carries on, currently 10th fastest for the man who has spent an awful lot of time fighting up at the front of the field in the Missed Apex iRacing series over the years. And he might still get a cheeky tail off the car in front. James Gill, currently third fastest, keeping an eye on Gomez as well, our provisional pole sitter. Currently, it doesn't look like Danny Henney is going to be in a position. I'll tell you why, because Henney's had a big coming together on the oval section that has included Luke Power as well. So Henney will not be improving on this lap, and Gill's gone into the wall as well. All of our top contenders finding errors here right in the closing stages of qualifying. Hit the outside wall on the way into turn 8 and lost the car onto the inside barrier there as well. So Philpott's out, Gill's out, Henney's out, and they were the closest contenders to try and dethrone Gregoire Gomez, who now could have a pretty easy going of it in the closing stages of qualifying here. See, Luke Power, he doesn't have enough time to get another lap under his belt, so it doesn't look like anyone is going to be able to depose Gregoire Gomez from his first pole position of the season.
What a qualifying that was. Bit of drama at the end there, as it did seem like Danny was tucked up behind Smithy and was potentially on for a pole position there at the end. But yes, as we predicted, just a couple of guys pushing. When they're pushing to that limit, that's when you start to see them, especially at a circuit like this with walls so close, that the errors start to creep in. But what a race we have in store for us, with a few, I think the familiar names are at the top of the leaderboard there. Let's see if they're able to keep it clean throughout this first race of this evening.
And Gomez ended up putting it in the wall right at the last corner as well, actually. So all of our top 4 have been in the wars right at the end of this qualifying session. Still a couple of cars to come over the line. Daniel Snorterland here, 5th in the Gold Class Championship. He's making his way towards the bus stop chicane, currently in 12th position and 3rd amongst the Gold Class runners. And he's abandoned that lap as well, so he won't be improving. If anybody else is on track, Jose Coy potentially could improve his position. Comes across the line, stays in 13th position. Jose Coy, another driver in his first season amongst the Platinum runners, our reigning gold champion there, of course. But the grid has been formed. We are now lining up and getting ready to go for the first race, the Formula 4 race in round 2 of the 8th season of the Missed Apex iRacing Championship. Gregoire Gomez starts on pole position alongside Bradley Philpott, with James Gill and Danny Henney starting on the second row of the grid ahead of Alexander Dopsberger and Stephen Williams. Our gold pole sitter Sam Harper ahead of Kyle Power and nephew Luke Power in 9th, with Tim Ellis completing the top 10. And then Alex Smith, our Gold Class Championship leader, alongside Daniel Snorterland, with Jose Coy and David Hatton on the 7th row of the grid. Then comes Daniel Cook and Colin Ward, Daniel Cook being our Silver Class pole sitter. And then Mark Greenhow and Alex Jeanty Van Geen starting in 18th, with Taro Talas and Spanners Ready completing the top 20. Alexandros Murafkani and Frick Smith, along with Sean Bennett and Colton Myers on the 12th row of the grid. Then comes Adrian Clark and Rob DeFries, the rookie for this season. Miguel Morland, Matt Trumpets starting in 28th. Ivan Anderson and John Cox in the top 30. Then comes Stephen Rumors, Christopher Holsworth, Mike Stoner, Daniel Cataldi, and Tom Jenkinson completing a 35-car grid. First round, first race of the weekend about to get underway. Remember what we talked about, the Spa effect with the drivers looking to slipstream each other? That's going to be all important in this F4 car. We saw Henney and Philpott. They were playing games with each other during the weeks running in the build-up to this race. But there's a few spanners in the work with Gomez and James Gill starting right up there with them as well. Could be in for a fascinating race, a 22-minute encounter, which is expected to be 17 laps of running. for this first race of the night before we switch over to the F3 machinery in the top 20 reverse grid race. Gregoire Gomez on the right-hand side as we look at it in the pink BWT Alpine colored car. All 5 lights are on. And we are underway for the first race of the night. Good getaway from our pole sitter. Danny Henney already getting up into 3rd place there alongside James Gill. He has the outside line, but he does manage to put his number 3 machine ahead. James Gill not taking it lying down as he tries to get back up the inside, but the advantage will swing to Henney as they make their way properly into the infield section. Gomez leads Philpott, then Henney, James Gill, Dobbelsberger and Stephen Williams inside the top 6, and Sam Harper getting into the gold class lead there as well as they funnel their way through this infield section for the first time. James Gill sitting on the back of Danny Henney still for 3rd place. Gomez got a good advantage, about 0.7 of a second. They make their way onto the banking for the first time. This is where the action starts. This is where the slipstreaming will commence. And we see Gill closing in on Henney, but also Henney closing in on Philpott for 2nd place. And Philpott not actually managing to reduce the arrears to our race leader Greg Gomez too much on that occasion. As they make their way back onto the banking section through the bus stop chicane, looking pretty equidistant between the top 5 at the moment. And a very clean start, I must say, heading towards the final chicane for the first time. Now we can see Philpott starting to close up that advantage. At the end of the first lap, it is Gomez by just 0.4 of a second to Philpott, Henney, Gill, Dobbelsberger, Williams, Harper, and then Kyle Power, Tim Ellis, Luke Power inside the top 10.
Yes, what a start to this race. I did think there'd be a little bit more of an incident packed at the start, but it seems to be everyone is kind of single file at the moment, and Greg punching the air ahead of Bradley as they're heading into the infield for the first time. You can see there Brad just closed that gap the last lap within the tow. He's definitely within range now, 0.3 behind. The tow range is around 6 to 7 tenths in this car, maybe even a second, as we stay on board with Brad here. He just lost a bit in the dirty air on the exit, as you do in these open wheel cars, especially the F4. But you can see that interval, he's gaining, and it's all about being aggressive over those curves. Is he able to close that gap up on Greg here and potentially have a move down into this last chicane, as Danny is ready to pounce as well, as he's pulled out over 0.7 on James now, just getting further and further away from that toe. You can see James's interval is just dropping back a bit as these front 3 just starting to form a gap, which will be important for the duration of this race. But there goes Brad on the inside, making a move on Greg, and this is going to allow Danny to get on the back of him as well. Is he going to think about 3 wide? No, he thinks better of it. But Greg here, as Danny is trying to go round the outside, and Greg holds on, and Danny's very, very close, and this has allowed James to catch up and pretty much allow the top 7 cars here to catch up. If you go side by side at this circuit, it really does allow those behind to really get involved, and Danny had his opportunity but wasn't able to make it stick. Let's see if he can have a go at him and stay on the back of Brad Philpott.
So Philpott's decided he wants to go early and try and lead this race, pretty similar to his strategy in qualifying. Henney wants to go with him. They're going to go side by side towards the bus stop chicane, but the outside line here doesn't seem to be pretty favourable at all. Gomez has to brake very, very deep to try and hang on to that position. That really has compromised his exit, and Henney will try and drag past him here. If he can stay on the right-hand side there, that will give him the line into the final chicane. But it's going to be pretty nip and tuck. Has to bail out of it in the end and sits in 3rd place still. But we see Philpott not running away with it at the moment. And as we tick off another lap 4 of 17 now, and the lead gap remains only at 0.3 of a second despite all that squabbling. And we only have 1.8 seconds separating the top 6 in this race so far.
Yeah, great racing thus far. Danny really needs to be careful and pick his moments when he attacks Greg, because if he has to look in his rearview mirrors as well, because if he gets out of position, it will allow James Gill to just slide up the inside and take advantage of Danny being out of place as we head onto the oval once again. But Brad not pulling away here. As we said, if you stay within the slipstream, it does allow you to really just close in on that driver. It makes very not enough corners on this circuit to enable the lead car to get away and break that toe, barring a mistake from the following car. And here goes Alex Dotsberger taking it on the inside here, side by side with with James Gill, and Steve Williams there right behind, ready to pounce. They're going to make it 3 wide on the oval. Oh, this is tremendous, so early on in this race. But of course, Steve Williams being on the outside there has to cover more track, and putting out the slipstream just doesn't have enough to drag it round the outside as Alex goes past James Gill there. But great racing, and this has only benefited.
Gomez in the wall!
Into the wall, wow!
Chris, so what's happened there? At the moment, yeah, Gomez went into the wall on the final corner. I think Henny might have made contact with him as well.
They have.
It looked like he did there. So, yeah, Gomez with a mistake there. And, wow, that's kind of the luck of the draw you get because the walls are so close. The car in front of you bins it, then, yeah, definitely contact with Henny there as well. But, I don't know, he might have just gotten away with it. But Greg Gomez, our F4 race winner from Budapest, our championship leader and reigning champion, out of this race. That is great news for Philpott, who's now 2.5 seconds clear of Danny Henny in second place, and Alexander Dobbelsberger fancies a run of the action as well.
Yeah, Henny has front nose damage, unfortunately, from that incident. He is able to continue, but of course, with the top speed so important at this circuit, Henny is going to be a sitting duck. Unfortunately, the only thing he can do is try and stay within the slipstream of the car ahead, but I think even so, he is just falling back with that severe damage you can see there, and the guys behind are closing in. So this is now damage limitation for Henny. He is going to be a sitting duck. There's nothing he could do in that incident as he tags the wall again there. Of course, he's lost performance. He's going to lose downforce with that front wing damage as we see James Gill lining up the move on the inside. We'll see how hard Danny fights. He might not know he's got the damage. He's a wily fox, Danny. I'm sure he knows that he is not up to top performance with this car. You feel the slightest bits of difference when you have damage and a slight knock. But Chris, wow, what a first start to this race with 11 laps remaining. We've still got some way to go.
Yeah, we certainly do, and we've lost 2 key contenders out of this one. One completely out of the running. The other one is going to be dropping backwards like a stone, I would imagine, throughout the remainder of this race with that front wing damage, not only costing him performance in the corners, but also causing an awful lot of drag on the straights. And we're going to see James Gill make another move here. Stephen Williams going to make it 3 wide as well into the bus stop chicane, and trying to make a move on Gill as well. Stephen Williams, can he make it 2 in 1? Oh, what a beautiful move from Stephen Williams in the West McLaren colours there. 2 for the price of 1, but James Gill tucks right back into that slipstream, squabbling over the last spot on the podium here, and he pops out to the right-hand side. That will give him the line into the chicane, but Stephen Williams too good on the brakes there as Henny loses yet more positions, first to Sam Harper and then to his old sparring partner Kyle Power, as James Gill jets back up the inside for 3rd place on the inside at turn 1. And this is just great racing between these 2 cars. Sam Harper's arrived on the scene as well with Kyle Power.
Yeah, great racing there. I was just about to say, but he is definitely channeling with that West livery the Kimi Räikkönen move that he did on Michael Schumacher at Spa. That was great to see. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to hold on to the position, but we love to see moves like that. And with these cars fighting, it has just brought in others behind, as we see Sam Harper, of course, the leader of the Gold division at the moment, with Carl Power close behind. Danny, unfortunately, he is going to be falling back through this grid, but Carl will now see this as an opportunity to score some decent points and potentially get himself a podium.
It will be much needed after the torrid start to the season he had in Budapest. We're on board here with Sam Harper, who is incidentally our gold class leader as well, second in the championship in that category as well, only 2 points behind Smithy, who sits in 9th position overall, so he'll be gaining an awful lot of points there in his particular class championship, and it is based on the overall position as well. So if he does pass Stephen Williams for 4th, for example, he'll get more points for his gold championship. So every position counts here. These 4 cars, you can throw a blanket over them. Stephen Williams goes very, very wide into turn 3. You see how much ground he's lost just with that one little mistake there. That's put a few car lengths between him and James Gill, but he's still well within the slipstreaming window. I'll try and gather up as much of that time as he can these last couple of corners before they head back out onto the banking section once again. And actually, it's Harper who's going a little slow there. Was very tight on the exit of the corner and he's lost a lot of ground. And he's yielding the position. Did he pick up a slowdown there, I wonder? Did he cut turn 7 just a bit too much and get himself a slowdown penalty?
It does seem to indicate that way. Maybe even a smart decision to let Carl through, who no doubt will catch the back of Steve Williams and James Gill. And maybe Sam thinking he can reap the rewards as these three fight it out. But we can see here once again that Brad at the moment at the front is just increasing his lead from Alex, just 3.6 seconds ahead of Alex Dobertsberger now. So Brad are in a mistake, which can still happen. You can't slack on your concentration. One blip in concentration with these chicanes and these large curbs can force you to end up in the wall. But back with James Gill here as he is being chased down by Steve Williams. And these guys, of course, need to worry about keeping these cars going forward and not sideways, as we saw Steve Williams do last lap, because that does put heat and unnecessary temperature into the tyres, which can affect your grip throughout the remainder of the lap. But we can see here Carl Power just a little bit closer to James Gill and could be within that range now to get the double toe from the guys ahead of him. As Sam Harper's just dropped back a little bit. He's just happy to sit where he is, currently ahead of Alex Smith, 2 positions back in the gold class. But on board with Carl now. Let's see what these three do as they head into the last chicane for the 9th time.
Less than a second covers these 3 cars at the moment, squabbling for the last spot on the podium. James Gill leading, Stephen Williams leading our last F3 champion, Kyle Power. They make their way out of the chicane to start lap number 10. And it is follow the leader through this infield section. Nobody troubling the wall too much on the outside or even the inside at turn 2. See 2 very different lines there. Power trying to get underneath and maybe just get his car outside of that turbulent air that is produced, even though this is F4 machinery. Any slips and wings car is going to have a bit of turbulent air. He's looking very confident in this infield section, I must say. A much more direct line towards the tyre barrier there at turn number 8. Let's see how close he can get in the slipstream here. We're on board with Power. Car number 2 narrowly missed out on the championship last season, looking for every point he can to try and make up for that disappointment, but nothing doing going into the bus stop chicane on this occasion. And Sam Harper has caught right back up to this train of cars as well. So we are back to a 4-car battle for 3rd place. Power's closing here. Closing on Stephen Williams. Will he make a move going into the final chicane? Still nothing. And this is what we were talking about, that Spa-esque type of race where you don't want to make your move too early, but Williams not a great run out of the final chicane, and that invites Power to the inside at turn 1 on Stephen Williams and takes 4th place away.
Great move there by Carl. I was going to say that he did catch up to the back of Steve on the infield, but Stephen Williams just seemed to really nail his exit, which allowed him to stay ahead, but compromised with, unfortunately, just the wrong angle in that last chicane over those curves, and Carl just pounced on that opening. So let's see if Carl, he can smell a podium here. Let's see if James Gill, how hard is he going to fight this? Of course, ahead of Carl in the standings at the moment after week 1. Sam Harper still tucked up behind these 3 here. They seem to be quite conservative, it seems, at the moment from going over those chicanes as Carl is gaining here in the toe. Has James got anything to answer Carl in this slipstream here? And Carl just backs out a little bit as James comes across his front nose. But Carl here, is he going to have another opportunity with the last chicane? Is he going to get Stephen and James at the same corner, T1? And again, so here we go, pulling out to the outside here. And James just covers it off. He's focusing about the exit. Here we go. And it does seem that Gill does get a much better line that time around. So we go once again. But one slight mistake here. And, well, all 4 of these could be gone. Then it could be Luke Power down in 7th position who reaps those rewards. And
interestingly enough, he was the fastest driver apart from our top two. So he is closing down this battle. The gap between them currently 2.2 seconds. If this keeps ranging on, we might have to keep an eye on that. Back on board with Power, trying to get third place away from James Gill. We're heading towards the bus stop chicane, but Gill will have the inside line by the time they get down to the braking zone. But Power's drawn so far alongside. Now, the outside line doesn't seem to work too well here, but if anyone can make it work, it's Kyle Power. He gets himself up into third position, and James Gill's got to watch his mirrors now because he's got two cars absolutely nose to tail behind him, looking to pounce on his poor momentum heading towards the final chicane. But that slipstream from Power just saving him a little bit there, as we see Stephen Williams unable to make the move and getting a bit of a compromise run, and now having to go defensive himself against Sam Harper. But it is as you were. But James Gill trying to come back at Power on the inside of turn 2. Can't do anything, can't hold up alongside him there. And Power might now try and consolidate that position, try and put as much distance as he can. Oh, he's pulled over. Why is he pulling over? Okay, well, that was just a slightly defensive line there, perhaps.
Yeah, just a defensive line, try and do something Alonso-esque, try and do something within the rules that to put off your opposing driver. Because James Gill in the tow once again, as I imagine Carl is going to defend on the inside here. James is going to have to go round the outside. This lot, while they are fighting, is just allowing Luke Power to catch up behind. Another fastest lap from him, as these guys are about a second nearly off of the pace of Luke and those behind. So if these keep it up, then yes, this will very quickly become a 5, maybe even 6 car battle as we approach the final stages of this race. But a good exit there from Carl, as we see Steve Williams closing in on James now. And Sam goes for the move on the inside, late on the brakes. Is he able to hold on to it? That was a great move there. Good thing that Steve saw it coming, and you can see there Luke Power now into your shot, and he smells a top 5 potentially, as his uncle is currently in P3.
Yeah, these guys in a Power sandwich at the moment, bringing up the front and rear. Luke Power in that white and yellow machine. Gap did fall into 1 second on that previous lap, as you saw coming out the final chicane after that move from Sam Harper. Right with these guys now, and it is just 1.4 seconds covering third place down to 7th. Great little battle here for the last spot on the podium, but Sam Harper, at the risk of becoming a little bit detached from that third place battle after making that move, because Stephen Williams is going to come back at Harper towards the bus stop chicane. On board with the West McLaren coloured car now, looking towards the inside. He has to gather it up, and again that could compromise his exit. He was all squirmy going towards the chicane, and you see how much ground he's lost just in that. I'm half expecting to see Luke Power pop up on the right-hand side here, and yes, he has got momentum. He is looking towards the inside line at that last chicane, which would be for 6th position, and Luke Power, he arrived on the scene a lap ago. Now he's moved up a place ahead of Stephen Williams into 6th.
Yeah, great move there. Of course, that's while you can go aggressive, if you don't pull it off, then you compromise your whole run down to the last chicane, and just a sitting duck from those behind, or anyone from a second behind, who was just able to just keep it planted out of that exit. But as we join on board once again for this fight for the podium, James Gill still chasing down Kyle Power, making him look more in his mirrors than he would like to at this stage. But a good result this would be for both of them, considering where they both started on the grid. But James there, still tucked up within the toe of Carl, but Carl has track position. He can put his car where he likes and make James cover more ground and track. As Carl moves to the outside there, a bit late to try and break the toe as much as he can of James, but a great exit there from James, and he's a lot closer to Carl than he was last time around. Carl will go defensive here and just hold that inside line. Maybe he'll actually move to the outside and want that inside line into the last chicane. James is gaining, but not quite enough. Let's see if they are able to. Now their exits, and very decent from both of them here, and we have only 2 laps to go for this podium position, with Brad and Alex and the Dobertsberger wrapping up what seems to be the top 2 steps of the podium. The last one is still up for grabs as we approach some traffic.
Yeah, it looks like Daniel Snorterland there, the car ahead, keeping well clear of this podium battle, which does look to be more of a 3-horse race now, as Luke Powers dropped a couple of seconds back from these guys now in his own battle with Stephen Williams. So the question is, with a lap and a half remaining, Kyle Power, James Gill or Sam Harper, who will be joining Philpott and Doxberger on the podium? Only a second separates these 3 cars at the moment, and it's anybody's guess. But Power looked like he had a good advantage there. Looks like he's just trying to break away from these 2 cars as James Gill got perilously close to the safer barrier on the left-hand side there. And Sam Harper needs no second invitation as he's right in the slipstream here and looking to take 4th place away from James Gill. Looking towards the inside, but not quite got enough. He had to bail out of it at the last possible millisecond. Gathered the car up nicely over the curbs as we're now onto the final lap.
Wow, that was close there. I thought Sam was going to lose his front wing, or potentially both of them spin around there, but Carl does seem to be in the ascendancy here, as James is now having to look in his rear view mirrors more so than he is having to look ahead, and this has just allowed Carl to pull out that all-important gap, which, barring a mistake, should allow him to secure that podium position. But we can see here, Sam, is he going to be content? Is he going to be content with securing that P1 in the gold class, or does he want to gain another position and potentially gain more points in the overall standings? It does seem like he possibly is, as he's just dropped back a little bit as we are approaching the finish line with Brad Philpott in P1. Here he comes, and it has been a dominant display by Brad. He got ahead of Greg and just managed to get away out of that tow, which is also important to do here. And it's been a very ominous display from Missed Apex's professional driver, as to be expected, as he comes across and wins the first race of the evening in the F4 car with Alexander Dobitzberger in P2. A great result for him, and Kyle Power, closely followed by James Gill, comes in 3rd and 4th, with Sam securing that 5th position in the top of the gold class.
Let's see if we can grab Kyle then for that podium battle, because that really was the highlight of the race, wasn't it? And yes, I think we've got Kyle with us now. Over to you, Stuffy.
Hey Carl, how was that race for you? You had to fight hard for it, and he was under attack from James at the end there. How was that for you?
Yeah, that was sorry, let me just mute me in game chat. Yeah, that was a good race. I didn't expect to get 3rd, to be honest. Struggling a bit for pace, but as usual, somehow managed to pull something out in the race. But that was getting pretty tight in the pack, and it was all about trying not lose the tow. And I made a bit of a silly move on Sam Harper. I think it was on like lap 2, and I lost us the tow, and that wasn't really the smartest move. But they started fighting ahead. We managed to catch back up, and then it was just some fun and games with James and Stephen in the slipstream.
Great result, mate. Rounding off P3 there, and your nephew was close behind in P6. So, yeah, looking forward to F3 race now.
Oh, absolutely. I might be able to be a bit less precarious in that one, hopefully. A bit more home ground as F3.
Good luck.
Thanks, Carl. Let's take a look at the results then from the first race of the night, the F4 race. It's Brad Philpott with his first victory of the season, ahead of Alexander Dobitzberger and Kyle Power. Joining the podium rankings for the first time this season as well. James Gill just missing out there ahead of Sam Harper, who takes the gold win. Luke Power in 6th ahead of Stephen Williams and Alex Smith, with Tim Ellis close behind as well. It was very close between them at the end of the race. Jose Coy completing the top 10, with Daniel Cook taking the silver honours in 11th place overall. Danny Henney across the line in 12th position in the end, after the damage to his car was sustained early on, ahead of Jeansy, John Cox and Miguel Morland. And then Gregoire Gomez getting up to 16th place in the end. Wow, that went under the radar and put himself in a great position for the reverse grid race coming up next. As has David Hatton, Rob De Vries, Richard Spanish-Ready and Alexandros Mervkani, who will be the reverse grid pole sitter for the F3 race, which is coming up very shortly. We'll be right back.